that issue with the delegates.
Right.
Let me first of all thank Honorable Cecily Mbarire for inviting us to Bomas at that time, because she was the chairperson of the Citizenship Committee.
Yes.
She gave us the platform to come and introduce dual citizenship and enlighten Kenyans about what it entails. And also, Dr. Guy and Patrice Lumumba, chairperson and deputy chair, we want to thank them also for making it possible for us to introduce that amendment into law, so that we can have dual citizenship in the constitution review, and eventually now, several years afterwards, it's, as you know, it's non-contentious issue right now.
Absolutely, it's just
it's a household name now.
Right,
dual citizenship, if you tell any Kenyans, yeah, they are familiar. Most Kenyans are familiar with and let me mention that dual citizenship and voting rights, we're not doing it for us.
Right.
We were looking at the bigger picture. It benefits actually our country more than it benefits us.
Right. Give us a brief on that for the people who are watching who don't really understand what dual citizenship actually means for Kenyans living abroad. What does it actually mean? Let
me give you a good example, which I introduced at Bomas then. I gave now President Obama as an example during the Bomas in 2003. As you're aware, nobody knew who Mr. Obama was in then. 2003.
Right. He wasn't even senator.
He was a little state senator in Illinois.
Exactly.
But we knew about him. And so what I was telling the delegates, there's a young American who has roots in Kenya, and he's a state delegate in Illinois.
Right.
And so I was telling them, can you imagine if this young man eventually becomes a U.S. state senator, and is a dual citizen, he can, by law, he can legally represent his mother country, Kenya, as a dual citizen, and represent United States at the same time.
Right. But why would the U.S. want that? We would want it.
Well, it happens. Because remember, even today in the Senate, in the U.S. Senate, you'll find that most of those senators, they have Jewish background.
Right, true.
Because Israel has dual citizenship with the United States. So you'll find that most of those U.S. senators and congressmen and women, they lobby for Israel, because they have roots in Israel and they're U.S. citizens, to actually, they lobby for Israeli issues, especially awarding Israel the biggest financial package from the United States. Remember, Israel, as a tiny country as it is, it gets $388 billion every year from U.S. aid to Israel. We get a fraction of that. Now you can imagine if Senator Obama was a dual citizen, when he was a senator, he could have been lobbying on issues about Kenya. So there are so many other benefits to the country, not only to us. You see, they looked at Bomas, actually they accused me of, at first, they had accused me of trying to sneak illegal Somali immigrants into the country. And I'm like, wow, my goodness, you know. First of all, if that was true, that's just a fraction. We are 1.2 billion people. We are 1.2 billion, I'm sorry, 1.2 million Kenyans outside of the country. So the attention should have been us, not if Somalis were allowed to sneak behind the borders.
Tell me currently what in your own opinion, you think that Kenyans are saying, are thinking about the current ongoing draft constitutional review?
It's been debated in different forums. Both here, I've been here for 2 weeks now, and I've had quite a number of discussions. And also abroad too, in Washington D.C., I think you're aware there was another debate over there. And that is very positive and good. Kenyans need to be involved in constitutional making.
Right.
You can't just leave it to the politicians
exactly.
to run the show.
Kenyans here, it's part. All of us have to be very proactive with what's going on. Absolutely.
Because that's a very important document.
Yes.
Once it's passed and voted, it will be very, very hard. It's adapted into law.
Right.
So it will be very hard to change what has been adapted already.
Right.
And that's why we made sure we went to Naivasha to address the PSC delegation and propose a clause in dual citizenship and voting rights to be able to have representation.
Right.
We knew if we don't do it now, we're going to be, that issue is going to be forgotten.
Right.
And it's a very important issue because for 1.2 million people, Kenyans outside of the country, unrepresented is very unfair.
Yeah.
Not to forget that we pump in $1.6 billion to this economy.
Right.
Actually, if you calculate it, it's 10% of the GNP
comes
from us. So we need representation somehow.
Do that 1.2 million want to be represented, or is it a certain group in certain countries that want to be represented? Would you say that it's a whole number, the 1.2 million, or would you say it's certain?
To be represented in the proposal that we are trying to put through?
Yes.
I'm sure they would, because right now they have no representation.
How are you
because let me just say this. It's been very unfortunate, and I'm not beating up on our embassies.
Right.
Our embassies have not been very representative.
Okay.
Our missions abroad, if they had taken that responsibility to make sure their citizens are priority,
right,
that could have been a different issue.
Right.
But as you know, we haven't had a lot of support from our missions abroad.
Okay.
And that's why we formed the organization so that we can represent ourselves. And though every Kenyan abroad, I'm sure, would like their issue represented in the country.
Right.
And that's what we proposed. We send a member of parliament to the August House.
Right.
It will just be fair, because of the kind of money we send here, our participation. And remember, we played a very vital role in the democratizing this country.
Right.
Politically, we played a lot of very major key roles to enable this country to change from one government to another.
I must say, some Kenyans might say, you don't live here. You haven't lived here since 1984. You probably won't live here in the future. Why? Why is this important for you? Seeming that the issues that are discussed, the issues that come up in terms of governance, in terms of democracy, will not really affect you as much as they'll affect a Kenyan who resides here.
And that shows you how unselfish we are.
Right.
Because we are not looking at us. We are looking at the bigger picture, and that's our country, Kenya.
What is the bigger picture, Mr.
The bigger picture, remember, even though we are abroad, we have families over here.
Right.
We have relatives. We have friends like you
That's
over
why
here.
you send the money, right?
That's why we send the money.
Right.
We send the money. Okay. Otherwise, we'll be turning that money and bringing it back where we live, we reside. We send that participation is because we love our country. And it's not our. We're not only looking at our interests.
Right.
We're looking at the bigger picture, the interests of the country.
Okay.
We want to nurture our country to grow economically, to grow politically, socially, and in every other institution.
You mentioned that you are here and you addressed the Parliamentary Select Committee in Naivasha. Tell us what your intentions were. I mean, what your proposal was and how it was met.
Well, I should say it was...
Be honest. Let me say, this is a place.
Let me say that it reminded me of Bombers in 2003.
Really?
Yes. Okay. When I went to Bombers in 2003, dual citizenship was a very alien issue to most delegates. Okay. That's what I noticed at Naivasha.
Right.
Because as soon as I introduced that issue to the PSC committee, most of them were shaking their heads, like, wait a minute, this is far-fetched. No, they know me, most of them, but they thought this is far-fetched.
Right.
The time hasn't come for that, for you guys to have representation. And I reminded them, I told them, this is exactly how I was received at Bomas.
Right.
But now you guys are experts on dual citizenship,
right.
you know.
What did they have to say about the proposal to have a constituency abroad?